Listen, so the Mermaid wave is in full resurgence, from Pattison flirting with paler ones and Bella, to DreamWorks releasing a diss track to Disney, and while I don't really care for all of these live-action remakes, they've all been making a Billy recently, so expect a Billy more.
It's either sink or swim.
Personally, I like Chloe and Haley's music, so I was kind of intrigued to see what they were going to do here, and Haley's voice is easily the standout for the movie. Yeah, I know people were worried off the trailer that Disney may have gone too under the sea, and that the screen would be too black, but the projection in Dolby is pretty decent. Obviously, some people will always prefer the Disney version over the Disney version, but it's always like leftovers, you know? It may not be the same reheating it, but sometimes it gets the job done. Let me explain.
Now listen, this is important.
So this new movie keeps a lot of the similar things from the original. It just decided to add a whole other hour. It's still a movie about not being afraid to cross your borders and meet new people who may not like you because you're different. But it's also the story of a girl who has to lose her voice in order for her dad to hear her. The Aquaman of this universe is King Triton, who runs the seas, blows his shellfar, and has more kids than Nick Cannon. Like, we're talking about one from each of the 7 seas that he's visited with his massive staff. Because for a man who hates seamen, he sure spreads his. He's got Caspia, Indira, a little bit of Mala, Karina, Perla, Tamika.
You gotta be kidding me.
Ariel's the youngest of his daughters, who's breaking the stereotype that black mermaids can't swim by doing his little TikTok shimmy. Problem is, she's always getting herself into trouble for tiny things like collecting a fork, and she hangs out with guppies. There's Flounder, voiced by Jacob Tremblay, who's voiced a fish before, who goes to the surface, even though his parents told him not to, who gets legs to fit in, has a relative with a pet crab. It's pretty much his little mermaid.
Merman.
But here, I don't want to look at this thing for more than 2 seconds. Not only do I hate the design, but they also took the few things that made Flounder. Like, he gifts Ariel the statue for her collection in the original, and now she just gifts it herself. But good on Jacob for securing the bag with his people, because he started this as a child, and now he's full grown.
It was really easy to kind of get into voice recording, but yeah.
Ariel wanted 2 feet. This man grew 3. She also has a bird buddy named Scuttle who can talk underwater and who also believes that fish are friends and food.
You gotta show him who's in charge. It's just Scuttle.
Eventually, Ariel gets entangled in a storm where she rescues a young prince named Eric and sounds the sirens as she lays him out at the shore. After that wreck, he ships her as she splashes for him, and then Haley kills part of your world. Like, look, you can be a descendant of Robert E. Lee. You cannot deny this voice. She must have lived under the sea with lungs like this.
Sun, wandering free.
Oh, I love this bit. This is when we meet Sebastian, who's the king's right-hand crab, who gets put on detail to kind of just like surveil over her. And Sebastian's been played by a lot of people. Like, on Broadway, he was played by Titus from Kimmy Schmidt, David here, who I think did the thing. But no one's gonna beat Samuel L. Wright.
I couldn't do a Jamaican accent. I didn't know how to do. No, I couldn't do a Jamaican accent. I could do a Trinidadian accent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Your Majesty. And I started doing this accent, and Howard said, "Stop, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do a Jamaican accent." He said, No, that's the accent I want. And I went, "Oh."
It's kind of like Disney was just looking for their own Applejack cinnamon.
Here I come, I am cinnamon.
I've heard some mixed things when it comes to Eric and this new take, but I mean, I thought he was pretty good. Dude looked like they ripped him straight out of the cartoon. All of his shirts were neatly pressed, even on the beach. But it was goofy that he would come out of sea after being out there for so long and still come home with a baby face. Like, not even a 5 o'clock shadow, just 5-year-old skin. He also sings one of the new songs titled Wild Uncharted Waters. I really like that one. It had this lyric where he goes, "Time may change the shoreline, but time will not change me." They had him on the cliffside strutting around like he's Troy Bolton and bet on it, and they had him soaking more than a Mormon.
If your character had a Spotify playlist, what would be their favorite song? And it can't be a song from this film.
Probably Breaking Free from High School Musical. I think that would probably be. He just wants to get out, man.
Down below, they end up singing and even animating everything for Under the Sea, practically making it a live-action cartoon. And yet Ariel keeps disobeying because she feels she'll never be satisfied. That's when her dad comes in a mood and just demolishes her entire collection room and even puts her on timeout. Like, she's not even grounded. She's below sea level. Triton's so upset because, just like real-life Javi, he's tired of all the ship debris that they've been cleaning up down there. They've been cleaning up more than BP, yet it's the queen who claims that it's the sea gods who caused them. So I guess he has to check himself before they wreck themselves. He's also upset because the humans killed her mother, but Ariel gives this really grown response that it wasn't all of them, it was just one. But it's also the Disney version where she doesn't have to deal with anything that her dad went through, because by the end of this movie, they pretend like those ships in the intro weren't even hunting mermaids.
Poor child. The sea witch?
Yes, indeed.
His way of fathering just pushes her farther away, and that's when temptation swoops in. She gets wrapped up in this Evil Dead anemones as she visits Ursula, the original queen who drags, to the point that she's literally just sitting for the first 2 scenes.
Divine much?
Disney continues their Purple People villains as they have her floating around busting her James Bond title like it's in 3D. And I thought it was funny that they had actual extras holding up her CG tentacles on set, because you know that one of them was probably played by her husband.
No, really? I was afraid he was going to say something like this.
That's
I was
all right.
really nervous about exactly this.
Meanwhile, I had no idea the original saved that much money.
And many people call her an octopus, and I'm so knowledgeable. I have to correct them and say, no, she is not an octopus, she is a squid. And they go, oh, well, what does that mean? She has 6 tentacles instead of 8, which makes it less expensive to draw.
They also made her Ariel's aunt, which was an idea that they had in the original script for the animation, and I know they used for the Broadway show, but it makes Ursula feel more like an outcast, someone who was tossed on the wayside by her brother Triton, and considering that they both have deleted songs, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot more in store for these squibblings in the future.
What are you actually wearing on set?
You're naked.
Ursula doesn't see Ariel as a lady, but a
Tramp.
so she convinces her to get Bardem so she can go up top by signing this Disney contract in perpetuity. After that, this girl goes from Haley Bailey to Halle Berry. She gets rescued from the shore and is taken good care of since they think she was, tossed from a ship after they were done with her. And that's why they give her this new song that all happens within her head that I thought was pretty neat, considering she gave up her voice for legs. And I thought they did a great job when it came to her hair outside, even though they never really locked down a look. I also heard they had her do that hair flip thing 20-something times with the extensions on, so I can't imagine how many times they shot water up her. Eric and Ariel end up bonding over having overbearing parents and duties they don't want to do, and also connect because they both have their own collection rooms. Like, this dude's practically living in an I Spy book, and yet he's so head over heels for her that he lets her bust his stuff. She really had a moonwalking more than DDG. They also added to his backstory by making him a shipwrecked baby who was rescued and adopted by the queen, so I get why his mom is extra worried because she found him in an accident. Then this movie begins with him in another, and now he's walking around wet in the Caribbean. But boy, there's pirates. I would have grounded him above sea level. They eventually go to the marketplace where she gets him a hat that he paid for, and we also get a cameo from the original Ariel as Jodie passes down the fork. That leads to them taking a jungle cruise where she plays Mad Gab with him in order to guess her name. But I had heard some poor unfortunate souls get up in arms about the swap that they did for some of the names when he was guessing, so I guess they pulled the thrones with that. As far as the song goes, I like David's take on it because he feels like a caged-in crustacean. They have him working overtime since they couldn't smack lips halfway through, and now he's stuck staying another hour. But personally, I'm a little tired with them Disney-fying Awkwafina. Like, I like a lot of the stuff that she's in, but here, I'm just trying to re-listen to a Disney classic, and out of nowhere it sounds like I got hit with the Godfrey duck. That's how did this man understand them? Is he part merman? Because I know that they went through the trouble of changing some of the lyrics, and some of them were pretty goofy because they altered Ursula's as if she's, not supposed to be the villain. Like, she's supposed to do bad things. They swapped out some for Kiss the Girl in order to add consent, which is only weird considering the context of what's happening in that scene, which is why they also made Ursula add a random rule about Ariel forgetting the rules when it comes to needing that true love's kiss. So, that way it wouldn't come off like Ariel's hustling and trying to Cardi B Prince Eric.
That's all you have to do. Just put the bait and wait.
Since they're about to have their happy ending, Ursula concocts a gastric bypass potion and then catfishes Eric as she puts him under her spell. So after all those days near the lily pods, it just proves love's not blind or mute.
They weren't kidding when they called me, well, a witch.
This leads to the Scuttle song, which was just, it wasn't for me. I knew Lin wouldn't be able to help himself because this is a man who loves The Little Mermaid so much. It's how he's modeled his music. It's why he made Moana. I mean, the dude named his child Sebastian. I just think he should have given more lines to David since he's the one who's really good with his
words.
Once Ariel gets word about this new girl, she pulls up and fish slaps her expeditiously. She doesn't throw away her shot, like she snatches Ursula's seashell chain and salvages her stolen speech. But a big shout out to this dude right here. Like I don't know what role he was supposed to be, but he's a
right-hand man.
In the animation, Triton calls an airstrike, even sends in the seals. But here, Ursula goes beast mode after killing her own eels who are on their heels. And that's when the Dobie kicks in as she tries to take over the ship. She now has Triton's Triton. She had Ariel crawling on all scales. She even gets bigger than the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, all before switching up that ending in where it's now Ariel who steers them into victory. They fix everything as above, so below, as the town celebrates their engagement with some Glass Azul on tap, with the biggest difference being that they removed that rainbow faster than Target. In the end, they roll off into the sunset to get sunburnt as they say lines to set up more sequels and finally become a part of each other's worlds. But if y'all gonna keep making these, then do Atlantis next. Thank you all for watching this video. I'm curious to know what your top 3 live-action adaptations are so far, because these 3 barely scored 3s for me, so it's not really that high of a bar to reach, but obviously they're not gonna be going anywhere anytime soon, so hopefully they at least shine a light on the originals, because the 89 one still holds up. I even went back to watch the behind-the-scenes making of, and I didn't know that they had to fight to make her hair red, because the movie Splash had just released, and the execs were forcing them to make her blonde, and now there's like an uproar depending on what shade she is. I also caught up on that Howard doc that Disney almost deleted, because the official special features revealed things I did not know, and yeah, it's not as family friendly as people remember.
Divine was this person that Howard knew from Baltimore, who's a cross-dressing guy who was in these John Waters movies.
I thought it was great. It was the ultimate irony. I'm sure that if you went to the Disney executives before they made this movie and said, we're going to have a very large character, I mean, this character is a big character in the movie. It's not some tiny little ingenue part that comes in for a second. On Dopey Lane, that ain't flying, I'll tell you.
So reading these, I'm like, are y'all coming out? As for the new one, there's that story of Alan Menken knowing who Lin-Manuel was and knowing how much he loved The Little Mermaid. And now they're like working together, and he's being told to add dance hall rhythms into the new score, and Lin's getting rewriting credits. So it's kind of like Disney's T Swift and Ice Spice collab, but he's still far behind when it comes to the gold.
Oscar, Tony, Emmy,
Grammy.
A Grammy.
And Grammy, that's it.
But I won a Razzie Award for Worst Song of the Year for Newsies. Same project that won my Tony Award for Best Musical. So.
It's all about balance.
So I have a regot.
Also, a shout out to Colleen Atwood for the costumes, because she had details down to Ursula's boots. That's usually the thing that these live action movies end up getting awarded for and remembered. So, you know, they'll probably be only that. Other than that, let me know your thoughts on this movie below, because I made a shorts review and I noticed this one had people heated. Like, I'm the first to call Disney out if you've been listening, but people took this fictional cartoon and treated her like that crappy Cleopatra series. You know, there were all the people who just straight up lied that this was better than the original. I know movies nowadays come with a lot of baggage, and we're at a point where people aren't really looking for opinions or reviews. They just want you to repeat theirs. But I know y'all have read a comment where it sounds like they're continuing a fight they had with someone else on the internet. So while it is obvious, no, you're not evil if you don't like the movie, and no, you're not some gracious saint if you do. Some people just watch movies. So whether you loved it, whether you hated it, feel free to give me your LME down below. And until next time, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and I'll send you my favorite Loteria card.